So Ruqqyaha, thank you for joining TT Kent. Before this episode, I spoke to you about like what sort of topics that we could speak about. So obviously, you do have a set of interests.
Yeah.
Content writing, just writing in general, and things like that. But I did check out your Instagram page as well, and I personally thought that the content that you had was very honest, was very straightforward. Like we live in this day and age where like everyone tries to be kind of politically correct.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were. So that I really, that's one of the reasons that I liked your content. And what brought you into content creation in the first place?
So like with my poetry page, if I start with that, I always liked writing.
Yeah.
Since I was young, I used to be obsessed with writing, and I just wanted to get into it. And then with my poetry, one day when I'm like a angsty teenager, I just decided to okay, let me just share my work.
Yeah.
And that's how it started when I started with my poetry page. So yeah, it's just been steadily somewhere I'm just gone to, as an outlet for my feelings and emotion.
Would it be a very stereotypical thing to say that poets are generally very sensitive do you think that's a very stereotypical thing? Or because I feel like at least in that moment when you're writing a poem, it's very difficult to have one without the other. Because, it depends on what kind of poem you're writing. But even if you were writing about war or something that doesn't require, that is not exactly romantic.
Yeah.
I still feel like you do need to be a certain level of sensitive.
Yeah, for sure, I agree. Because I feel like poets, when we do write, right, we have to be attuned with our feelings, our emotions, and our thoughts on it. And even if it's not about let's say romance, because maybe I have a romantic writer, but I know other people. And I also tried writing about other things, but it's something I've always felt or cared deeply about. So I feel like it is a bit stereotypical on poets maybe sensitive, but I didn't really think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So so other than poetry, what else do you write?
So I do write. Okay, so I started off writing fan fiction, like any teenager writer. I used to write fan fiction and go on AO3 and all of that. But I do want to my life goal is to publish a novel.
Right.
It's a very slow progress because I'm a procrastinator. So I don't know. So I guess I used to write blogs when I feel like it. Sometimes I just put my thoughts into paper, share a blog here and there.
Cool.
Very sporadic.
So I think one of the mistakes that the creative types usually make, and it could be just my personal opinion, but it also does come from a little bit of experience. So, the creative types usually they get too lost in their creativity that they forget that it's also a business. That there's also kind of a marketing sales aspect to it.
Yeah.
That you do you don't need to necessarily make forget making money out of your hobby, but even if you were to kind of get it out there, you do still need to market yourself, right? So I feel it does work for some creative types. Sometimes they just do what they want to do, and everybody ends up loving it.
Yeah.
Right, but unfortunately, that is not the case for everybody. Right, so going into movies a little bit, because that's my favorite area. You get all sorts of different directors. So there's this director, I'm sure you heard of Steven Spielberg. So he did Jurassic Park, Ready Player One, and a lot of his E.T., a lot of his famous movies. So he has covered pretty much every genre, but all those genre movies have a mixed plate in it. For example, if you take Jurassic Park, there's humor, there's violence, there's a bit of thrill, there's a bit of horror, there's family, there's a bit of everything in it, right? So there's something for everybody. So usually his directing style, you call it kind of like a mixed plate, I guess, like a balanced style, basically. And then you get directors like Christopher Nolan, he just goes and does his own thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he doesn't care about the rest of the world. And it has worked for him, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the most, if not the most successful director right now.
For sure.
So, that really depends. So, how would you like to navigate your creative work, taking into account everything I just said?
Okay, so from what you just said, right? Yeah. Maybe I should perhaps, like, cater to the market. Like, I'm sure not everyone wants to hear me talking about, like, my heartbreak or, my, like, journey through love or whatever, right? And honestly, I have tried, like I said, like I mentioned before, I have tried writing about different things as well.
Yeah.
It's just that for me personally, I think my most authentic and most honest work comes from when I write what I prefer.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, marketing it for the masses.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So, like, and one of the things, so I did a short stint at Leo a long time ago.
Okay.
So one of the things that they said, so it's a advertising agency for ones who might not know. So one of the things that they said is, like, if you want to do an advertisement for the masses, think of what you would do and do the exact opposite. So especially I think that is true of Sri Lankan masses, but also I think that's generally how it is everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So I think every creative type needs to kind of make a decision at some point. Where do I draw the line between selling my creative work and being true to myself?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I think that's very interesting. Cool. So if you do like write a book or a poem or whatever the medium is, you're saying that it's most likely going to be based on your own experiences, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So shout out, sorry to all the guys that I've fallen in love with. So sorry, man. All my experience, all my poetry, it has come from personal experiences, or like what I felt, or actually not even personal, like if like my friends have talked to me about something, or like, they've like, shared like how they're feeling about certain thing, or anything like that as well. I'm drawn from their experiences because I felt I would say I'm a bit of an empath. So what they felt, or like what I think, this is what they went through, and like, let me kind of draw from their experiences as well. So most of my poetry, most of my writing actually comes from my own experiences, like my, what I felt, or like what I seen, or I felt like something I've written. If I watched like a really good movie, a really, really good book, I thought I'd feel like, okay, maybe I need to write this like how I felt about it. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Just to that point, so there was a movie called Parasite, which was directed by this Korean director.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it won Best Picture in 2020, 21, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think it's 21.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things, or the most important thing that he said during his acceptance speech was that if you want to do something creative, do something that's based on your own experience, and it will work for you.
Yeah.
So, like everything in the movie Parasite seemed very native to him. The environment, the country, obviously the location, the people, the way they behave, the society. So, and it really worked for him, right? I mean, it ended up winning Best Picture. So, I think he really made a very important point there. Okay. Based on the experience of hearing what the director said, since I do a little bit of writing myself, I've tried to base some of the writing, actually most of the writing, based on my own experiences. For example, like there's a short story that I'm writing, and initially I wanted to appeal to the masses, so I wanted the setting to be, so it's a sci-fi novel, so I wanted the setting to be in America or maybe even UK or somewhere in Europe. But then I was like, but how can we relate to it? It would seem so fake. So I made sure that it happens in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. Because even so, the novel that I'm working on, right? Initially, it was gonna be like, because it's like a young adult fantasy, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. And it was gonna be like with all like these like Celtic names and like like the typical, I would say, mainstream young adult fantasy things, right?
Right.
But then I was thinking when I was writing it, I was just like, we really don't have a lot of representation for Sri Lankan authors for one, and also Sri Lankan authors who write fantasy for the other. And I'm saying, why don't I just write about something I know, something I relate to as well? Like, even if I'm writing about romance, now I make sure all my like characters have Sri Lankan names, because who would want to go and talk like read something about like a guy named Steven and I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So like I definitely get like what I think his name was Pup. So I don't know, the director of Parasite, what he was trying to say about like being authentic to yourself.
Yeah.
Their best work comes out of that. And I feel like we also low-key relate as writers with ourselves.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Cool. So just to segue into another topic that we could discuss. So you said you are a bit of an empath.
Yeah.
So do you consider that to be a disadvantage when it comes to relationships with your friends, with your boyfriend, maybe, I mean, with whoever you're having a relationship with? Do you consider that to be a disadvantage, or do you now see it as a bit of an advantage, or how do you see it?
I suppose it's a bit of both, right? Because I feel like out of all like in my relationship, whether it be friendships, like romantic relationships, but with my family, I've always been someone who puts other people's feelings first, and that's something I've been trying to dial back.
Yeah.
Because it has put me at a disadvantage where I've been, taken advantage of. Because like being an empath, you're like, oh, they must be feeling really bad about this. So then you're just like, okay, you try to like the hurt that you've been put through, you're trying to like, no, they had a reason for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Would you also consider yourself a very agreeable person? Right, so that's a bad combination.
That's a very bad copy. Yeah.
Because if you were an empath and you were disagreeable,
Yeah.
then you're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Because there have been interventions. My friend that had intervention is like, no, you can't, you can't be a doormat. Because I have very doormat-like qualities, apparently. I am like the peacemaker in the family. I'm like, it's my friend is like, even if I'm like sick or tired or, I'm someone who never says no to people.
Right.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter like if I'm like, oh, maybe I can just like, cancel, I'll do this like another time, but I can never say no. That's something also I've been trying to work on this year.
Right.
Resolution and all of that. But
Right.
yeah, so I would say being an empath and an agreeable person, it's a bit of a...
Yeah. No, trust me, you need to learn how to say no. Like,
For sure.
cannot survive in this world because this world is not tailored for people who are like yes men.
Yeah.
Right? So, like there's this famous saying that it's a dog eat dog world.
Well, yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't any good people in it. There's definitely things that are worth fighting for.
For sure.
And I don't think you should lose yourselves. You should not lose the essence of who you really are. But I think people in general should definitely learn how to say no.
Yeah.
Because the moment people realize that you cannot say no to a certain thing, they do not hesitate to take advantage of the situation. I mean, take a very simple example, like you go and purchase something, right? I mean, if you cannot bargain for something, right?
No, I'm like, I think last week I went to a cafe. The food, was a little bit spoiled. It was like stale. It smelled stale. It tasted stale. And I knew I had to go and tell them like, no, this doesn't seem right. I could not. I had to ask my family, can you please? Because I'm not at all confrontational, which is like a terrible quality sometimes.
Right.
So my best friend and I actually this year, I'm getting off topic, but like we were like, our kindness, our niceness hasn't gone us anywhere. So maybe like the next 6 months of the year, we should just like say, fuck it. And like, I started getting bleep. It was like, I was just like, fuck it. And like, just like, do like being happy the year.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a big distinction between being, what was the word that you used? You didn't use the word evil. What was the word that you used? Being a villain and being disagreeable.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you necessarily have to be rude or be angry or anything in that spectrum to people to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to draw that distinction. So maybe you could start with that. Maybe you could start by being rude because, I've realized that a lot of people who are not very social or very closed and to themselves sound a bit rude when you approach them at first, but that's because they're scared. They're scared that they might take advantage of you. They're scared that they might get hurt. So, but they just don't know how to sort of react to certain situations.
Yeah.
So instead, the best option that they have is to kind of be mean, be rude. So they are not taken advantage. They are not taken advantage of. It's very difficult to kind of be disagreeable, but also be kind of cool about it. But I think everyone kind of, it's a journey.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think I would ever be rude to someone. I don't think that's like my personality.
Yeah.
But like for me, my middle leader is a bit maybe just putting my foot down and being like, no guys, sorry, I can't make it.
Right.
So
yeah, I think the tone kind of helps as well.
Yeah.
Because I myself am a very agreeable person. But being in some of the industries I've been in, I had to learn very quickly to overcome that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always a tone. I can say like I've developed this talent of saying, go F yourself in a very calm and soothing tone.
No.
So it might not go to HR. Even if I did say.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's basically like, corporate speak of like, we call it corporate bullshit, and there's a word for it. There's this guy who does content on like corporate bullshit. It's basically how to say like fuck you in corporate.
Oh, yes. I see like this girl on TikTok. She like this. I just, okay, no, thank you. Yeah. I see like, yeah.
So that's always good to learn. That's something that I suggest to everyone who is too agreeable and too nice.
Yeah.
Because in that case, in that scenario, not only do you stand for yourself, but you don't come off as a very rude person also.
Yeah.
I mean, see, like when you do take a stand for yourself, generally speaking, people do tend to hate you anyway, right? No matter how you approach it.
Yeah.
Right? But you could definitely still be nice to a person and still say no. You can do both things at the same time, but you have to practice it.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as we say.
Yeah. No.
Right? So yeah, that's there. So when it comes to relationships, I don't think dating in Sri Lanka is all that different to dating anywhere else in the world right now. Of course, there are certain distinctions. Of course, there are certain things that are different. But what do you think about dating sites? Because it's a very controversial topic to some. It's a very it's a very divisive topic, and it's a very divisive platform. Like, but what do you think of dating sites in general?
Okay, so personally for me, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Because I tried, like, after I had like a breakup a few years ago, I got onto a dating site. I was like, you know what? This is my time to shine. Let me meet people. It was not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Because it just looked like all the people on there were searching for one thing and one thing only.
Right.
It was not mine.
But there's also a lot of catfishing going on. Like,
No, for sure. Because like, I actually came across someone's profile. And I was like, wait, you're on like Tinder? And they were like, no, I'm not. And I was like, is it a bit real? And it was not there. So there's a lot of catfishing on there. And like, you never know exactly who you're talking to on the other side of the screen.
Yes.
So that's a bit scary. But on the other hand, I have had friends who have had very successful like Tinder matches or like Action Bumble actually for them. And so I guess it works for some. And it's a good way of meeting people, but it's also very risky, I would say. But then again, Colombo is so small. It's okay. I'm talking about in the context of Colombo, especially because I think dating sites are more popular in this area. Everyone knows everyone in Colombo. So what we do is like, oh, I matched with this person. It's like, I'm sure every girl can relate to this. So like, I'm like, oh, I matched with this person. Do you know? Have you heard of him? We do a little bit of like cyber stalking to make sure, okay, this may be legit. Because you never know. Like, at the moment, you can never be too safe, I have to say it.
Yeah.
So, I guess it works for some, it works, it doesn't work for others.
Right.
So, yeah.
So there are some settings where people gather as a community. I know a lot of people who have found successful relationships in like road track clubs, EO clubs,
Yeah.
sometimes Toastmasters and all these different clubs.
Yeah.
So would that sort of setting work for you or still no? Or but what's your general opinion about those settings?
I feel like that's an organic way to meet someone because one, if you're in a club of some sort, you obviously share a mutual interest, right? So that is something you can also begin a conversation about, or like, you know, okay, if you find someone like cute across the room, you're like, oh, okay, this is like a great way to strike up a conversation.
Right.
I feel like that's an organic way. I guess the romantic in me bonds like, oh, I would want to meet someone.
Like run into a guy at
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, my thing.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right.
No two guys at coffee shops, but that's like, for me, I feel like, oh, you know, meeting someone like at like through a mutual friend or like, you know, at a party or let's say at like Toastmasters or road track or something like that. That would be a cute, I would.
Right.
But yeah, but I feel like you have a different opinion on it.
No, I think it's my opinion on that is pretty much the same. So like, I feel like, especially road track and the guys and the girls there are very open about like why they join in the first place, because they don't try to hide it.
Okay.
Because like I was in a road track club like ages ago.
Yeah.
And then where the very first round where we got to introduce ourselves to each other, there was also the question which we had to answer about why we joined road track, right?
Okay.
And every guy there said, "I'm here to find a girl." You know?
Oh, interesting.
This was very straightforward.
Oh, okay.
It was a small crowd. I think it was about 8-10 people there is, right? I mean, we were reviving the club.
Yeah.
So it was a small crowd, and most of them knew everyone there, I guess, kind of. But yeah, people were very straightforward about it. Not everyone was there to find a girl or a guy, but I think a couple of guys there were very straightforward about it. It was like, you know, I'm here to find a girl.
I feel people were that straightforward about it.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah. But you know, if you never really know someone, even if you're married to them for 10 years,
No, for sure.
you know, you can be in your deathbed and find out some crazy shit about the person that you want.
Some story that now I question, like, oh, okay, is this actually like, do I want like a relationship? Nah, maybe not. It's really talking me.
Yeah. So, but I still think. So I'm a very conservative person. So I still think, you know, having a relationship is with all its difficulties, I still think it's something everyone should try
Okay.
and make something out of.
Yeah.
So see, the thing is, ages ago, I met this monk in a temple here in Sri Lanka, and he was a very senior monk, and I asked him, what's the meaning of life? So, usually when you're asked a question of that magnitude, you tend to, beat around the bush.
Yeah.
No one really gives a very straightforward answer. People are very general about it, but he was not. So he told me that the meaning of life is to survive and to replicate. Right? So then I realized it's a very biological answer.
Yeah.
Biologically speaking, that is 100% true. Because every organism, since the time there were organisms, up until this point, their biological goal has always been to survive and to replicate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? To live and to pass on the information to your next generation. And depending on what sort of organism it is, there are different ways of achieving it. And but even for human beings, I feel like for the longest time, survival, forget replicating, survival was at the utmost priority. Because you step out of your cave, you get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, or there's a volcanic eruption and you die, right? I don't think life expectancy thousands of years ago were about 30, 40, maybe not even about 20. So if you made it 30, you did something good.
Something good, yeah.
Right? So, but now, we are at a time where, for most people, survival is almost a guarantee. And for most people, replication is also kind of a guarantee, especially when you have your matchmakers like your parents, especially in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, Sri Lanka, yes.
So, in that case, you look at the next step. Like, okay, right, I can survive, I can replicate, so then what's the meaning of life? Then you think of the next step, and then you get lost in it.
Yeah.
Like, I know so many people who have got lost in that question, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
Because they are privileged enough to have those two things. And I don't think there's one answer, right? I don't think anyone in this world has one answer to the question, what is the meaning of life? Because I feel like if there was one answer, let's say, for example, the meaning of life was to make money or to be rich, I feel like it'll be a very competitive world. I'm not saying it isn't already, but it'll be crazy competitive to a whole other level, and people would not stop at anything to be rich. Everyone knew for sure being rich is the kind of meaning of life, So I think it's very cool that everyone gets to derive their own meaning. What do you think is the meaning of life?
I knew this was coming, I still wasn't prepared for it. For me, bottom line is to be happy. To be happy with my decisions, with my life choices, with the people I surround myself with. So I guess the meaning of life to me is to grow old and just be content, not have any regrets in life.
All right.
Yeah. So
cool. So when it comes to being happy, have you heard of the concept of nihilism? So nihilism is basically this concept that life has no meaning, that it's all a coincidence.
Yeah.
And we are just another number in the equation.
Yeah.
So people do tend to get lost in the extreme part of nihilism. And one thing that is very common in that scenario is looking for happiness by very extreme means. It could be drug use, it could be sexual activity, it could be food.
Yeah.
It could be anything, right? So that's a very dangerous line. But if you can draw the line and you think of it and you're in control of what derives happiness for you, I think you're golden. But people who generally tend to get nihilistic ideas it's very common for them to get lost in this idea of seeking happiness in something. And I mean, that turns into an addiction. And I think it's very important to be aware of, yourself. I think once you are aware of what makes you happy, if you have ticked those boxes, I think you are safe to explore. You know what I mean? Just coming back to the topic of relationships, I think we both agree that you can never truly identify a person for who they really are. But I feel like it's still a gamble that you need to make. It's kind of still choice that you need to make.
Yeah, for sure. Because personally, I don't know, I feel like one of my few poems back that I posted, I wrote this line saying, loving you was a privilege and losing you, but learning how to unlove you was a lesson, right? Because I feel like you make certain choices, like, okay, if you do need someone and you think, okay, I see a potential in as a partner, and like even if it ends, it crashes and burns, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have not regretted it.
Yeah.
Because you have to kind of, get to know them. You have to kind of experience it. You can't like stop yourself from, oh, this is going to hurt, so I might as well not.
Right. Yeah.
Does that answer your question? So like,
no, it does. Yeah. What would you say are like the red flags when it comes to guys for you in general? What are like some strong red flags?
Oh, that's a good question.
What if they drink and smoke? Is that a red flag?
In moderation, that's okay. Right, but if they're overindulging, then it's a bit of a red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because honestly, people are gonna. So one rule I live my life by is, if I don't do it now, I'm going to try and do it later, and then I'm going to be like an old uncle or auntie in a club, trying to like redeem their like
Right.
So in my opinion, I'm like, okay, might as well do it now. If you want to get it out of our system now, and then like later on, settle out. If that makes sense.
Right.
I feel like that's like a bit of a weird opinion, because people can like, they'll probably like, smoke and drink, and we would rather your partner be honest about it, upfront about it with you, instead of them like doing it in secret. Because I know people who are in natural relationships, and their partner doesn't know that, they drink or smoke. And I'm just like, this is such an, I would say, insignificant thing that you're keeping from your partner. Like, because if you're going to be lying about that, what else are you comfortable lying with, right?
Yeah.
So I guess everything in moderation, because if you're going to overdo it, then I don't really know how I'm going to keep up with you, because I'm not someone who particularly indulges like that either.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Okay. What are the other red flags?
Okay. What are the other red flags? If they can't respect your time. I find people who habitually get late for things.
Right.
That is something like, because if you're going to say like, okay, you're going to meet at this time, and you don't, then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. And once is fine. Twice also is like, okay, things happen.
True.
But if it's going to be a pattern, that's a bit questionable, because like, why aren't you respecting someone else's time if they're making, like, carving out, a certain like time of the day or whatever, and like, you're going to meet at this time, and you're both agreed upon it.
Right. So commitment. So basically, it's commitment. Like with your commitment.
Yes, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because when you initially said, respecting your time, I thought you meant like giving you your own space to do certain things.
Yeah.
Is that part of it too? Like.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So I feel like a red flag that I have is I was someone who was very independent, I would say. Like, I'm being independent. Like, I'm a very independent child. Like, a lot of people just go like, oh, she's very independent for it. But when I got into a relationship, I used my partner as a crutch.
Yeah.
Right? which now when I think back on it, I'm just like, oh, I should have like, given him his time and space, had that boundary that I wasn't where, like perhaps I also kept crossing, right? So I do feel like if someone can't like give you that time and like, that alone time, which now I've come to appreciate a lot, like me getting back in the dating game as well. And when someone constantly texts me or like tries to call me and like, now I'm just like, oh my God, can you leave me alone? So like I've come to appreciate that time alone and, having my own personal space, which I used to not. So that was a red flag that I feel like I've shed. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, like one thing, but I think when it comes to girls, that might be kind of common. Because again, biologically speaking, I feel like, or like historically speaking, I think females generally have been a lot dependent on men for so many different things. Like men have been the breadwinners. I mean, it has changed in the past 50 years, I would say.
Sure.
Right? So I think it could be, it is still common. It is still quite common. But if you are dependent on your partner to derive your own happiness, that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
So, or even for something like making certain important decisions in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about menial thing like, groceries or like...
Yeah, like what should I eat for, like, what should I order in for?
Yes, but like, let's say you want to start a degree or, you want to travel somewhere for holidays. So like, if you depend on your partner for something like that, I think that might be a bit difficult. But, yes, and also I think the problem with that is quite obviously when people depend on others, it's very easy for the person, it's very easy for the other person to break your trust. Because the thing is, like, let's say, okay, like you said, like, let's say you depend on someone to make it on time at a particular meeting, and if they don't, they've broken your trust. But that again is for a lot of people, like, like especially Sri Lankans, working on time, that, never really happened.
Never happened.
Because obviously, like, when we organize like parties or whatever, we usually put the time like a half an hour early, so that they come a half an hour late and on time.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who likes, even if I have to go to hell, I like to be there early. I don't go there on time. I like to go there early.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm afraid to. Like, if I sit back in line, let's say I'm going for an interview, I always want to be the first person who's facing the interview. If I'm giving a speech, and if there are a few others giving a speech with me, I always want to be the first person to give a speech.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I observe the others, I create scenarios in my head and like I overthink. So I always want to be the first person who jumps.
Right. Yeah.
It has been an advantage sometimes. It has obviously been a disadvantage at other times. But for that same reason, like, I'm someone generally who is always early. I wake up really early because that has turned into a habit. I actually used to wake up around 4 o'clock during school days because I wanted to take the first bus to school.
Oh, okay.
Because I hated crowded buses. And I was always first person in school in uniform. And like the guys who did sports were already there around 5:30, maybe even before. But I think most of the time I was always first person in uniform in school. And but I found that very interesting. I mean, I found that very relaxing. Like, there are certain benefits to, waking up that early. But, okay, coming back to the topic, red flags. Okay, so excessive obsessions like drinking, smoking, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Red flag, obviously. So were you trying to say that making a commitment to you to be there at a particular time and not keeping to that promise is also red flag? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I wouldn't consider it as well. Because I feel like that shows that you don't respect another person's like,
Yeah.
time, which is also an important part of their lives, right?
Yeah.
So like, if you can't give them let's say an hour of your day to them,
You don't.
what else are you not giving them?
Yeah, because if you don't respect their time,
Yeah.
you don't respect them.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I think I live by.
Yeah.
Because I hate when people get late, because I'm just like, it was not that much of a big deal for you to come on time, right? Like, especially I get it if there was an emergency, if there was but I'm someone who, like I have mentioned before, I'm someone who plans ahead
Yeah.
a lot, within my meeting my friends, a lot to my friends, because I'm a lot to deal with sometimes. But I plan ahead when I do meet them and stuff like that. So they know, okay, this is the time I'm meeting, so you can adjust your schedule according to that. And
Cool.
yeah, so I suppose if people know ahead, okay, this is a plan that I've had made with this person, you can adjust your schedule according to that. It's not much of a...
True. That's true. But I think people have, especially in Sri Lanka, people have got so accustomed to, being late for something.
Yeah.
It's almost like a very normal thing now.
Yeah, that's...
So you need to be very direct about that to people, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because all my friends know I'm someone who hates being late. When they're on, if they ever get late, they're like, hey, sorry, I'm very late. Please don't be upset. I'm like, no, that's fine. As long as you're keeping me informed. If you're just gonna ghost me and not tell me oh, no apology, nothing whatsoever, I'm just gonna be like,
True.
bruh, what are you trying to do here?
So, any more insights?
This is going to be a hot take, I would say. Because some people do have, I would say, they don't have any friends. Okay?
Yeah.
Because why don't other people like you? Why are you oh, it's if they lose friends very often, or they don't have friends, they would some people oh, I just don't have a set, if you like it. But I'm just
Why? But why? Yeah.
why don't people want to spend time with you,
It could also be that they are introvert,
yeah,
but that in itself could be a red flag. You know what I mean? Well, okay, you're an introvert, but I hope you're not the introvert who's a serial killer. You know what I mean?
exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. Why you so to yourself? Which I'm really sorry. There are people there with who don't have any friends, and there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing. But for me, it's a big questionable. Oh, why don't you have any friends? But if you do have a couple, let's just you if you have more than one, you do a best friend. That's great. Because okay, there are two people who actually really like you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's enough for me. There's someone who can vouch that you're not a serial killer.
Yeah.
Or some
Kind of like a referral.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would say.
There are so many similarities between applying for a job and, looking to be in a relationship. Just this whole referral scene, I just made the connection there. But, for example, first impressions matter. There's so many similarities there,
That is so funny that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Because I recently gone back into the dating game, right? After 2 years of, I broke in half to whatever.
Yeah.
So I got back in the dating game, and then I went on a couple of dates, and then I was and I will talk to my girl, my really close three best friends. So I said to them I don't know, maybe I just felt bad, and I went on this date or whatever. But they were you do this so often, I think we need to get a Google form out and then them to fill it out to see whether you're compatible with them or whether you're actually interested in them, instead of just going on this date because you had to. So how you were saying it's a job application. Maybe.
Yeah.
It could be.
It's funny. There was this Facebook page a long time ago called. There was one called Sri Lankan Love Bugs, but there was one before that which was somewhat more legit. I forgot the name.
Okay.
they had this Google sheet out where you were given a couple of questions. And then they made matches up ones who got the most similar answers.
Oh, okay.
And then they kind of put it out on display for everyone to see who only
Hold on. Okay.
took part in that game. I mean, in that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened after that, but I thought that was very interesting. That was the first time that someone in Sri Lanka had done it. Or I had seen someone in Sri Lanka do it. So, yeah, that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's funny, right? How you see how like now you have the matrimonials on like the papers, and then like they evolve to like have like these these Facebook groups like where you match people according to interest, or like you have like speed dating like events where you're like, oh, okay, based on your similar interest. So I feel like it's all like that same core, like the core things are the same.
Yeah.
But it's just that like how we approached it is like, oh, okay. If we go up to our parents and be like, oh, okay, I'm ready to find a problem, like, oh, okay, for example, now I know if we go and say like, oh, I'm ready to find a proposal to one of our friends, they're just really like, what do you mean? That's so like old fashioned. Like, why don't you just meet in like the what way? And I'm just like, for me personally, I find proposals, I'm open.
The success rate, and I think the success rate of proposals, if I'm not mistaken, might be higher than love marriage.
No, sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is, because this is my take on it, right? Proposals, they're already being vetted by your family.
Yeah,
right. So that like that kind of aligns, because I would say I'm very
I mean, your family already knows about your not so family-like qualities as well. So when they're looking for someone, they don't consider that as well. Like,
exactly.
For example, let's say no one, I'm using this as an example. Okay, let's say no one in my family drinks. But let's say I'm a heavy drinker.
Yes.
So they might look for a girl who might be okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like for me, so it's something I call the halal to haram ratio. So like I always, yes, because that's like many, it's like every time I done, like, I'm like either dating someone or my aunt said, darling, isn't it time for you to find that fast? I need I need to find like that halal to haram ratio, and they were like, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, so he needs to be okay, like I wanted to like, be able to pray and like fast and like, there are certain things I want, like a good Muslim guy, but I also don't want it to be so conservative that I feel like I'm being pushed into a box. Right. So I feel like proposals are a great way, but it's fun. Like back to the point I was saying, it's like how we evolve.
True.
Like it's either like you get like your family's blessings with it, or you don't.
Yeah. So in that particular Facebook page that I was talking about, you get to auction your friends. So you draw up a profile. You do find like couple of photos of your friends. Best looking, like you find some of their best looking photos, and then you upload them, and there's a small description down there about what their interests are, about how old they are, things like that. So you basically auction your friend to whoever else is on the group, and usually like a lot of people comment.
Okay.
And then they even tag people who might be interested.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was really fun. I don't know what the success rate of that was, but it might have worked out. You never know. But that was very interesting to see. I don't think that group is active anymore, but I think there are a couple of groups like that. But that was very interesting. Cool. How it was red flags, or it's just something that.
Yeah, no, it was just like I feel like that.
Yeah. So say you wouldn't mind like an introvert if they had friends, like let's say someone. What if the guy was like really to gaming like 24/7?
Not 24/7, because I would want him to also be. But I don't mind if you have like
a
heavy gamer. That's fine, because like sometimes when I'm a big reader, when I get lost into a book, others I'm like, so like I want like I'm just like into my book, right? So I feel like each to their own. You can't like really. That's the thing. Also, I feel like you really need to see whether your personalities match, and like because you can't. I feel like changing yourself to someone is also another red flag.
Right.
Right? Because like if you're changing who you are, or like, you know, if you're changing like so much of who you are, or like things that you do because like you want it to align to another person.
True.
Are they really dating you, or are they really dating this perception of you?
That's true.
Right?
I could also ask you about the other end of the spectrum. What if they were like extreme extroverts? Like, let's say they were hiking 24/7.
Okay.
Trip to Malaysia, trip to wherever, like, you know, every other month.
Okay.
What about that?
So I'm an extrovert, I would say.
Okay, sorry. As long as you get to go long or not.
Yeah,
not
so what I realized is that I love my alone time, and like if they also want to go and do things on their own, I did it, as long as they're keeping me updated.
Right.
I don't want like, you know, for hours on end where I don't know where like what's happening, or they're just like, oh, hey, I'm alive. That's it. No. I want like updates here and there, of course. But you know, but if you want to go do your own thing, go do your own thing. If you want to go have like a boys' night, go. You know, don't worry about me like, you know, calling you every 15 minutes or something like that. Like, you know, just do your thing. Cause someone once told me this, right? Like, cause many of the reasons why people are so like obsessed with like knowing what that person is doing is because they have trust issues, which is fair.
True. Yeah.
Right? But someone told me, like my friend, like, you know, if they want to cheat, they're going to cheat any day. There's nothing you can do or say, or like, you know, you can track their phone, you can like, you know, you can, you know, I don't know, clone their phone, I don't know, like what people do now. But like, if they want to, they are going to, right? And you can't stop that.
Right.
So for me, if, you know, they want to have their alone time, let them do it. If they're going to use that time to go and like, you know, be unfaithful to me, that's also like, you know, that was your decision. Eventually I'm going to find out. Because what I've always honored is that like, if karma is always a bitch.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I feel like everyone will get what's coming to them eventually. So in my opinion, yeah, that's what my take on it is like.
Right. Why is it important for you to have a partner that has the same religious beliefs, or like is it religious beliefs, or is it like just certain spiritual practices? Or like,
I would say it's a bit of a, so I may not be like a typical Muslim, right? Like, look at me here on live with podcast, I will be. So what I would say is, I want someone who, because I feel like it's easier also to, you know, for them to be accepted into my family and to me to be accepted into theirs.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can date outside of your religion and outside of your culture, and you can marry into it. And I've seen people have made it work. I mean, it's just that for me personally, I've always believed that like, I've always wanted someone who will embrace my culture, who would love my culture and my like religious beliefs as much as I do.
right.
Right? Because like, yeah,
It's a part of you.
it's a huge part of me actually. Like, yeah, I would say like it's a really huge part of me. So yeah, I can, you know, I would love, or even though if you know, if my future falls, I fall in love with someone who's non-Muslim or not Malay, that's fine. But I always pictured myself, you know, being able to like, you know, do the same, like he'll get the same inside jokes. He'll get like, you know, he'll understand why I love, you know, satay so much, or why I like, you know, like certain type of food so much, or like how like there are these certain songs that we sing and like he'll know the words to them, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
So like that kind of commonality, I would.
That's true. That's true.
Right. And also with my family, yeah, we might not be as conservative, but we do have certain beliefs that I also adopt. I like as I practice. So
I think we are to some extent copies of our parents.
yeah.
To some extent.
Yes.
So we do tend to kind of mimic the same religious beliefs of our parents, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. I know there are so many people who have understood that they do not need to follow the same religious paths or spiritual or same beliefs of their parents and found their own way. But that can go one of two ways. You can get really lost in the extreme of, of that freedom, or you can, come full circle and then understand, okay, why these beliefs were so important, why these practices were so important, the discipline it kind of brings. So many different things, whatever the religion, whatever the culture is. Because personally, I feel like human beings are not smart enough to survive without some sort of doctrine, at least not yet. We do need, I'm not saying we have it engraved in us to follow or worship, that's not what I'm saying. But we do need to sort of give priority to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And that can come in so many different shapes and forms. Because for some people, when they lose that, they focus on the wrong things to prioritize. It could be yourself, it could be your own ego, and people get lost in it. It could be money, it could be something else, food, this and that. So I have realized that, people still, human beings, doing some sort of doctrine that guides them, whatever form it may take.
Yeah.
So, because societies have come full circle, like every time society has lost their faith, let's say, for the lack of a better word, it has plummeted. It has, there've been very bad consequences, and history has proven that.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case. Like every time people have lost their faith, they have been indoctrinated into a different form of faith, like could be socialism, could be nihilism, could be some form of capitalism, but like all these different philosophies. So I think it's important. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be a copy of your parents, you know what I mean? So that's cool. What else can we talk about? Any topic, any other topic that you want to talk about? Not really.
Yeah.
Dating, what else? Okay. If I ask you to give one advice to guys and girls who are trying to get into the whole dating scene in Colombo,
Yeah.
or just in general, what would be that advice?
That's quite ironic because it took me 2 years to get back into the dating scene.
Yeah.
But I would say first take your time, because if you're not ready to get back into it, it's not fair to the other party.
You're right.
No.
That's
Because personal experienced that, because I was not ready. I got back into the dating scene, went on a date, cried my eyes out once I got home. Because the guy was great, everything. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so not ready for this.
Yeah.
So one, I would say is make sure you're ready to, because especially after a relationship, no matter how long or small or short it was, you're always going to compare that first date, especially after, when you're getting into the dating scene.
right.
You're always going to compare. Oh, it was like this. Or this is what I felt before and now it's a bit weird, it's a bit awkward or something like that. So make sure you come to terms with yourself, okay, you know what? That's in the past. Now I'm going to move forward. It's a new chapter. You're going to go on that date. So one, just be ready. Two, I would say don't date any topic generally. I think not be careful also. Just make sure the person you're going on this date with, or you're going on it, whoever, whether you meet them on organically, at a meetup, at a party, or on Tinder or Bumble, wherever. Make sure that you are actually interested in them, you all do have something in common, or y'all do, you generally feel I would like to get to know this person better, instead of just being I want to just go on the date for the sake of dating.
Right. You need to see some potential there.
You need to see some potential. I feel like it's important to see some potential. Yeah, if you're looking for something else, if you're just like casually, then it's something different. But if you're actually serious about getting back into like, starting like going on dates and like meeting new people or whatever, just see some potential in them, because like otherwise you're just going to be like, oh, why right here?
True.
And that's again.
Yeah. Another controversial word when it comes to when it comes to relationships is, especially when you have ended one, is closure, right?
Yes.
It's almost like a bad word when it comes to that whole scenario.
Really?
How would you define closure? Like what would you say closure is? Do you think it comes in different forms to different people, or do you think it could be a very objective thing? What is closure?
That's
Yeah, I asked a question.
yeah. Oh, now we're getting the inside. So closure, I feel like is when you are ready to kind of, for me, everything's in a book, right? So a relationship, it's a chapter in your story, or like it could be an actual whole book.
Yeah.
And then you're like moving on to the sequel.
Right.
Right? So closure for me is when you kind of finally close that page and like, it's...
But what if you want to read again?
That is perfect.
Yeah, so what if you know where the bookshelf is,
Yeah.
and it's within your reach?
Yeah.
What's stopping you from reading that book again? How do you know that you're never going to touch that book again?
Oh, so for me, I kept going back to the bookshelf. I kept going back, taking it off, flipping through a few pages, putting it back in, right? For like, quite a while. So I feel like the real closure came for me is when I finally was just like, you know what? It's not fair to me or him and to like my close friends that I've told them the story over and over and over again. Because like at one point I realized as well, like, yeah, it was great while it lasted, right? Like even everything, like, picture the future with him, all of that. But at the end of the day, this is not something he wanted. And I had to be okay with that.
Right.
Right. And if I was going to get closure, it was not going, and I wanted him to be the one to be like, I was like, oh no, let's meet one last time. I want closure. But at the end of the day, I realized it was not from him that I needed it.
Yeah.
It was within myself that I was like, oh, you know what? I don't need to go back to that book anymore. I don't need to take it away, like out of the shelf. Because like, yeah, that
You're tired of the book.
we're tired of the book, right? You're like, okay, you know what? I've read this
Story.
so many times. Like, it word for word at this point.
Right.
Right? So you're just like, okay, you know what? Let's just give it a rest. Because otherwise, you're just not going to...
Yeah.
You're going to find a better book.
Yeah, there are so many other bookshelves out there.
Yeah.
So many genres. There's science fiction, there's thriller, there's
Exactly.
young romance or whatever.
Yeah. And if for others, the book is going to be a self-help book at that point, right? So, yeah, I feel like closure, maybe it'll come to you in an instant, or maybe it'll come to you much later on, but it'll come to you when you need it the most.
True. And I think everyone, for closure for everyone is different in terms of the time that they take.
Yeah.
Right? For some people, it might be a week.
Yeah.
Some people, it might be 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So, you need to just realize who you are in that time frame.
Yeah, and I think the best way to also find closure within yourself is to kind of relearn, because especially after a relationship, right? You share so many different habits and like time with this other person, like qualities as well. You kind of like...
You become
like one person kind of, right?
True.
Like, and then relearning. Okay, how to be on your own, like, relearning, like, oh, what are the things I like to do by myself? Okay, because like, I remember like the first time I went out to eat in a restaurant, right? After like the breakup, I was like, oh my God, he would love this so much. And I'm just like, wait a minute. What am I thinking about it here? Like, let me enjoy. Because I'm a huge foodie and I'm just like, why am I associating things like food that I love with him, right?
Right.
So a lot of like, you know, moving on and close and all of that is finding yourself again. You know, finding your, you know.
Right. Identity.
Yeah, your identity again. Yeah. Because like the person I was 2 years ago to the person I am now, completely different people. I love the person that I am now, I would say, because she's more confident, more sure of herself, more independent, you know, and I feel like that the heartbreak that I had to go through was something I needed, right? A lot of people might not see it that way, and that's also completely fine, because initially when this happened, I was like, nah, this is not for me. I don't need this, you know?
Right.
So I feel like every person is on a different, like, you know, path.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, for me personally, I've never had a bad breakup.
Yeah.
It's always been very mutual, and I'm sure it had, I mean, for both parties, it did take a certain period of time to, you know, get that closure.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was never that difficult, because I think the reason for that is because I did become self-aware about why it's not working out.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me, fortunately, before my partners, unfortunately for them, after me, I guess, sometimes. But yeah, I've never had a difficult breakup, but
Yeah.
one thing that I did was, when I realized, okay, I need to kind of stop fooling around and I need to find a person for me, I went on a lot of dates.
Right.
And that was just it. It was always like there were so many first dates.
Yeah.
But I was very picky about who the first date was gonna be with. There were so many first dates, and I was perfectly fine in that because I was not gonna stop until I found that perfect person.
Yeah.
And because I do feel like everyone does have, I mean, okay, so the word soulmate, right? I mean, people have so many different definitions of it. People completely reject it. People think it's bullshit. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe soulmate is not the right word. I feel like soulmates. I feel like soulmates are not something that's there. It's something you make. Sure, you could feel like it's your soulmate sometimes the moment you meet a particular person.
Yeah.
Those people are very lucky. But sometimes I feel like it's, you know, this could be the beginning of something that's going to feel like soulmates in time to come.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do, like, for example, like Sri Lankans, Buddhists, especially, they subscribe to like multiple lives, rebirth, right? So what if this is the first time what if you're brand new? What if it's the first time you're meeting your soulmate, right?
Yeah.
How would you know? Yeah, I think life is about balance. You need to sort of also look for someone who was made for you, but also aspire to, you know, create something that you might feel as a soulmate if you do, you know, if you are evolved in another life, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's just my personal philosophy. But how would you define a soulmate? Do you think it's something that exists, or what do you think about that?
I do believe it's someone that exists. So I believe my soulmate is my best friend. Okay, because she's been there for me through it all. But at what you said, Brad, like where they are not actually made for you, but like over time they become like your soulmate or whatever. I feel like that is true. because my best friend and I, we've been through so much. You know, there are times that we haven't spoken, but like, you know, because like we've known each other since I was 3. So now what, 20 plus years? Yeah, for 20 plus years later, we're still like, and she is now living in New Zealand, right? So like, that's like now time, distance, all of that keeping us apart. But like, I still feel connected to her as the day I did when, you know, I chose her to be my best friend or whatever.
Right.
So I feel like soulmates are per se, it doesn't have to be like, you know, romantic.
Doesn't have to be
I feel like, you know, people say like, oh, it's like a romantic connection. I genuinely feel like soulmates can be, you know, it can be your like sibling. It can be like your best friend, your, you know, partner maybe. But like, it doesn't have to be a romantic notion only.
Right.
Yeah. So that's like my take on soulmates.
Interesting. Cool. I think we can wrap it up. We covered so many topics.
Yeah, I feel it. All of it.
Yeah, so this is usually something that happens. I mean, we go all around, like, and we don't like to limit ourselves to one topic.
It was interesting though, like, you know, just like talking because I'm a yapper. Oh, I was so scared of the ocean.
Yeah, why do you think I started the podcast? Cool. I mean, all right. So, yeah, I mean, like, see, it's always a good thing to voice our opinions. It really doesn't matter how people take it.
Yeah.
Because there's literally nothing, this is something I believe, there's literally nothing anyone can say that will not offend at least one other person in this world.
For sure.
It's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I could say hi to you and it could offend someone in, you know, America. You know what I mean?
No, that's so true. Because funny story. Before I was coming to this podcast, right? I was so nervous. I was just like, oh, what if I going to say the wrong thing? I was telling my friends this. And they're like, no, don't worry. I was like, no, what if like I get hate comments and all of that? They're going to be like, oh my God, look at this girl. Like, you know, she thinks she knows it. You know?
Right.
And then they're like, dude, someone summed up it and if you put a right comment, right? Right? So like, just do what you want to do. If you really want to do it, go for it. Because like, who really cares? You don't even know this person. They're behind like a screen. Like, so it's so funny that you said that, you know, you should really...
Okay, so first of all, you need to tell your friend we don't have 1 million subscribers. We have like 2 or 3, right? So, and they are very open people. I know all my subscribers. I know them by name. Shout out to all 3 of you. So, but anyway. Yeah, but yeah, I strongly believe that there's... But that doesn't mean that you should be rude or you should not particularly be rude.
Yeah.
But again, you should not try to be politically correct if you really believe in something.
Yeah.
You should second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Am I correct to say this? You should do your research.
Yeah.
And if you feel, okay, no, like I believe this, I know it to be true with facts.
Yeah.
Then you say it, you know?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who want to speak out on certain topics but are afraid to do so because they are either worried about the hate comments they get, they're either worried about getting cancer, or they're worried that people might not like them.
Yeah.
You know, so don't do that.
Yeah, I realize I have enough people who like me. Like I have my friends and family, and like, you know, if they're there, that's enough for me. Like, cause like, who cares? It's not the change of the internet doesn't like me, right?
True.
So,
all right. So, Ruqqyaha, did I?
Yes, Ruqqyaha.
Ruqqyaha. Yeah. Ruqqyaha, right? Okay. Thank you so much for joining Thinking Ant again. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. All right.